2014 looks like this. It starts at 3.5 and it finishes at 1.4. That was the forecast being made by the South African Reserve Bank, 3.5% economic growth for 2014, made this time last year. And we will limp across the line with 1.4%. I think some things have played in our favor very late in the game. The oil price collapsing is the most obvious one, because that's going to take a lot of steam out of inflation, and it'll allow interest rates to at least even keel into 2015 and perhaps even go softer. As things stand, we think that inflation could fall as low as 4.5% into 2015. But you know, the real tragedy of both the 1.4 and the 3.5 is, where is the 5.7? And the NDP set out to achieve just shy of 5.5% economic growth, 484 pages of policy. And a couple of years later, we haven't got remotely close to that in any year. And I think that's the tragedy, is South Africa has the capabilities, the capacity, we have the institutional fabric to achieve that 5.5% economic growth. Now 5.7, because we've been off the pace for the first couple of years. But it's not about to happen anytime soon. And if I could, just go through a couple of the things that really stand out to me. As you know, one of the frameworks that we work with in the business school to think about the competitiveness of countries is the six-pack framework. 6 factors that have overwhelming explanatory power. The first component is savings and investment. And the savings rate needs to be high and investments need to be effective. South Africa's savings rate is 15%. What we need to fund 6% economic growth is a 30% savings rate. Just to get to the 3.5 that we've been hanging around in recent times, you need foreign funding of about 5% per annum of GDP. So we are foreign reliant on the funding of our savings investment gap. And it will remain that way until the private sector, no, let me be more exact, the household sector in South Africa wakes up. Households in South Africa don't save. And it explains in part why there are so few small businesses being formed. The second component is healthcare. And here there is good news. If you look at mortality rates or life expectancy in South Africa over the last 10 years, we've made good progress. And I think Aaron Motsoaledi is doing increasingly impressive things. Education remains disastrous, but better than it was. The fourth ingredient is economic openness. Here, I'm afraid we are getting in our way. A few years ago, one of South Korea's largest telcos offered to acquire a stake in Telkom. South Korea's telco ranks first in the world for competitiveness, and we told them that we didn't need them. And the data released just last week show us that in ICT infrastructure, we rank something like 93 out of 120. There'll be an expert in the room who can give us the ranking. And instead of welcoming that capacity building, we turned them away. So openness, we're a bit of a two-legged animal. I mean, your business hinges on economic openness. And we want the foreign buyers of our scarce commodities, but we don't want scarce capital to give us the missing growth. It's hard to reconcile. Demography is a fifth important ingredient. Here we are in shape, in that, in contrast to, let's say, Western Europe or Japan, where last year more adult diapers were sold than infant diapers. South Africa has a young and vibrant population capable of becoming an effective workforce. And then the sixth ingredient is economic policy and institutional capacity to deliver that policy. Our policy is world-class. Our institutions are struggling. And the most obvious case in point would be the half an hour that it took me to get from Sandton to here because of load shedding this afternoon. We're getting in our way. And I think, again, there is a great prospect for collaboration. And South Africans are really good at getting in the you should and you are responsible for. What about we? Nick puts it really well. If you don't have a country, you don't have a company. If you don't have a company, you don't have a job. I think as a society, we need to get out of the blame game and into the we're in this together story. And so maybe let me make that last point before making a brief observation about 2015. In institutional capacity, the most important but probably the least understood component of institutional capacity is social institutions, trust, collaboration. We had a taste of that in 2010 with the World Cup. We had a good sense and a clear ambition of that in 1994. I think we've lost our way. And it really struck me when I was listening to a radio station the other day where they spoke about South Africa being outraged at the murder of Senzo Mayiwa. I don't see the outrage. I don't see the outrage. And given that, I think we're asleep at the wheel. Which means 2015 is muddling along. And we will remain a consequence rather than a cause.